This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
All right, let's do this. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Daily, everybody. Great to have you with us. Andrew Paterson with you, along with the CTO, Michael Remis, back at WST Command Center. Big show today. No game to talk about, but everybody's still exhaling, de-stressing after that crazy series against the Edmonton Oilers. We'll have more on the Winnipeg Jets, who get a little bit of R&R time before figuring out who they'll be facing in the second round. Certainly looks like high probability of the Toronto Maple Leafs after their win over the Montreal Canadiens tonight. We'll tackle that and much more as we get into the program. You may have seen on social media already, this is going to be a massive show for us. Really excited to welcome in head coach Paul Maurice of the Winnipeg Jets for the first time on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. We'll be doing that a little bit later on in the program. Before that, we'll break down how the Jets did it and a look ahead to round two with Tim Campbell from NHL.com. And we'll also get into what happened to the Oilers, just how close this series was, and Winnipeg's chances going up against, in all likelihood, the number one team from the season in the North Division, the Toronto Maple Leafs. As always, we got to start off by thanking the sponsors that make Winnipeg Sports Talk happen. Not AutoCorp, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Little Brown Jug Brewing, Assiniboia Downs, Breezy Bend Country Club, Coolbet Canada, and Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. And speaking of Assiniboia Downs, we will get to our picks a little bit later on today after the coach comes on for tonight's day of live racing. It didn't go well last night. Well, it didn't go well for Remis. He lost his bet on race one. Mine were a little later on, and because of the crazy weather last night, the card was postponed, the remaining of the races. So I've got to double down today and get back in the winner's circle. We'll do that a little bit later on. Let's get Michael Remis in here and chop it up before we bring on Tim Campbell to get things going. Remo, and I'll put this out to everyone in the chat today too. How well did you sleep yesterday? How much did you rest? How much recuperation and recovery time did the fans need after a very late one, a legendary Triple O team on a game that already started nearly at 9 o'clock? I don't know about you, Reem, but I conked out for a couple hours after the show, got up, watched the Habs game, and then went right back. I think like a lot of people around the city needed a complete reset after a wild weekend that, unlike many May-long weekends, was wild not because we were out having fun doing things elsewhere, but because we were living and dying with every single second of 3 consecutive overtime games that all came out in the Jets' favor.
Yeah, I mean, we had the comeback overtime. It was nice to get a 6:30 start on the Sunday, but the Monday, I mean, everyone was typing in chat before. And what time did you go to bed? I didn't get to bed till like 2:45. I know Tim Campbell's coming up was up very late writing for NHL.com. I saw a number of people, went to bed extremely late. I know, and Kenny and Randy, they ended at like 3 a.m., 3:30 a.m. on just technically Monday morning. So, we needed some sleep. We watched the game last night. Toronto wins. It's looking like Winnipeg's going to play Toronto. But if you ask any Leafs fan, I think up 3-1, maybe their confidence isn't what you think it should be. So it was nice, not to have a break. I know the players are having a break. Mark Scheifele and his goats were not at the rink, and and we'll have a couple days here. So, be staying tuned to that Toronto-Montreal series, and then, I mean, if it ends Thursday, you think they could start it Saturday? I guess it depends on the other series because they do want the Leafs in that Saturday time slot.
No, absolutely. It's funny. A couple people hit me up on Twitter yesterday with that question, and I kind of said I doubt it. I mean, they have games scheduled in this series going Saturday and Monday if there is a game 7. But I mean, certainly from a broadcasting side, and I guess a league side as well. I mean, let's not forget, Reem, that, 3 more series could be finished tonight. We'll get to the Cool Bet lines a little later on, but we've got game 6s in the Pittsburgh Islanders series, the Vegas Golden Knights and Minnesota Wild series, and the Battle of Florida between the Panthers and the Lightning. All of those series could finish tomorrow, and potentially Toronto and Carolina could win their series tomorrow as well. So, they could be getting into the next round on the weekend. And I know the National Hockey League would probably love to get the series back on track. Part of the reason why both North Division series had a built-in back-to-back was the fact that they had to start so much later because the National Hockey League wanted to finish the Vancouver-Calgary series of the regular season before they officially started playoffs in the same division.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the schedule right now. I mean, right now, Saturday, to be determined on the schedule is Nashville, Carolina, Game 7 if necessary, and Toronto, Montreal, Game 6 if necessary. So, but before we get there, we got to go tomorrow is Carolina, Nashville, Game 6, and Montreal, Toronto, Game 5. So I think maybe Thursday we'll have some clarity. I wonder if they would give them the quick turnaround just so they can squeeze in another Saturday night game of Leafs Jets. That would be the reason why, and give them a day off in between. Usually they give them a couple days, right? Or are they going to start right away?
Sometimes, teams in the past have gone to Game 7, have then gone right back at it. I mean, listen, the Jets are going to get the benefit of the sweep and, are not playing yesterday, today, tomorrow. So if I'm the Leafs and I, end it in 5 games, I probably don't want to get right back at it 2 days later against a rested opponent. I could see Sunday happening potentially because, of course, Sunday, it still would be a pretty solid primetime game in Canada. Numbers would be huge. And then if you're going on the day on, day off, you go from Sunday to Tuesday to Thursday, and then you've got that Game 4 Saturday matchup for Hockey Night in Canada. Yeah. So I could see it rolling like that. One thing I'll tell you, based on what we saw last night, I think there's a pretty good chance that this series does end tomorrow because it did not seem last night that Montreal had very many answers for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Although, as many people in the chat have mentioned, here's one from James Robinson. The Jets are playing like the only team that knows it's the playoffs in the North Division. I don't know. Maybe it was the intensity. Maybe it was how locked in and how invested we all were in the Winnipeg Jets Edmonton series. But, it did seem like an early regular season game last night between Toronto and Montreal compared to what we saw between Winnipeg and Edmonton. And that has nothing to do with fans in the building because there weren't any here in Winnipeg and there weren't any for the Leaf Habs game last night.
Yeah, I saw a lot of comments on Twitter last night during the game that, this has actually been, there was so much hype for Toronto-Montreal. And it's actually been the worst series, the most boring. And yeah, I saw comments from people saying, this feels like a regular season game. I thought I was going to get that feeling from the Jets games too. No fans, and you see the other arenas. Carolina's playing with full barn right now. And I did not get that feeling at all from watching the Jets games. It definitely felt like you were watching playoff hockey, the intensity. It also could have been because 3 games went to overtime. But even how I was feeling on the couch, I think Paul Maurice mentioned that he had a friend whose heart rate monitor went off because he thought he was doing too much exercise.
That's amazing.
His watch started buzzing. So, I definitely, I'm going to be honest, I needed to take a shower after watching the game from just how intense it was. But I one of my friends said to me before, he's like, it's going to suck, no fans. I did not get that feeling at all. I thought they were awesome games. And again, they were close games. You had, we're so focused on the 3 overtime game, you almost forget that there was a 3-goal comeback in the final 8 minutes of a third period, and then an overtime win in Game 3. Game 4 was just as epic, and I don't want to overuse the term epic, but I think you can. It's applicable here.
Well, and part of the reason why, it's going to be such a treat to talk to Paul Maurice today on the program is that there's so much to get to, from just how close this series was to, what's it like being on the bench through those overtimes, differences from really coaching in the regular season to the playoffs to overtime in the playoffs, as well as what happens after a game like that for both the players and the coaches. So we'll get into all that with Paul Maurice coming up in about half an hour. So probably in and around 2 o'clock, I think the coach is going to join us. And we'll have, if you're watching with us live on YouTube, and Tim Campbell coming up in just a few minutes. As far, it's funny you mentioned that, Reem, about the triple OT. coming off of the Ehlers OT winner. I mean, we've got 3 different OT winners to talk about in this game. And part of the reason why, and I'll give you credit, I mean, I know we said last week that we were going to do a show on Holiday Monday just because, we were going to be going from game 3 into game 4. And regardless of what had happened in the games, there would be a lot to get to. And, people would be wanting to hear it. But I think doing the show on Sunday, which we hadn't originally planned to, that was so well received by everyone, showed how fired up people were to get as much Winnipeg Jets and NHL playoffs content as they could in the middle of a long weekend with nothing else going on. But you're exactly right. It did give us time to specifically talk about, game by game throughout the series, because can you imagine if we just not been on the air over the course of the weekend and then came on Tuesday and had to talk about everything that happened over the last 3 days? I mean, there is so much to dive into, and certainly from a Jets fan perspective, so many things to be excited about that I am happy that we did fire it up on Sunday and Monday, because there was a lot that couldn't wait till Tuesday. And hell, by the time we got to Tuesday, if we didn't have those shows done, we would have had to go for about 5 hours and done multiple pods, because Game 2, Game 3, and Game 4 all needed to be dissected, and there was a lot of good things for Jet fans to chew on as we get into a few days off as they wait for the Leafs or Habs.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we were on Sunday. We had a great conversation with JP Vijay, who really gave us some great insight on how the Jets' strategy changed from the regular season against from what we saw in their forecheck and how they were able to contain Connor McDavid. Again, pointless for the first 2 games, and he had his points in the other games, but again, it was so close. The Jets were able to battle back. I've seen a lot of, outrage. People mad online about the officiating in the series, saying the Oilers didn't get enough calls. I mean, I thought it was equally bad both ways, so I don't know where you stand on that. And I agree that the standard in the playoffs is clearly different from the regular season, which I think is a concern, but I don't think the Jets had an advantage on the officiating. That was my perspective.
No, I mean, listen, a lot of people around Edmonton will say Connor McDavid never drew any penalties in the entire, and, I guess that is legitimate, but there was a couple. I was surprised maybe that DeMello didn't get tagged with that check that was sort of knee on knee in the final game. Maybe for 2 minutes. But for the most part, I thought the Jets, really did everything they could within the rules as they were being called to give themselves the best chance to hold down, in particular, McDavid, but Draisaitl as well. And this is not new. I mean, we all know that playoff hockey is significantly different in the regular season. And, the bigger conversation, if you want to talk about, well, why are things different? Should it be? Listen, that's a much bigger conversation. We're living in the now. We know, and everyone was expecting things to get tighter as they do each and every year in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And, the Jets were prepared for that. Certainly Paul Maurice talked about that going into the series, and the players obviously listened and stepped up with the challenge. And obviously it was night and day with the way that they were able to defend against those top stars in the Edmonton Oilers than it was during the regular season. Listen, if I'm on the other side of things, you know what? I probably will go to that and kind of wonder how it was the case. But the bottom line was, it wasn't like we were getting, long video tweet threads with this wasn't called, this wasn't called, this wasn't called. It was more just an overall thing. And it was very similar to the penalties called between the teams in the regular season. I believe in the regular season, it was even at 4.9 minutes per game. And in the playoffs, it was 5.2 for the Jets, 5.6 for the Oilers as far as time on power play. So it sort of made sense. I certainly don't think it was lopsided in one way or the other. It was just sort of the way the games were called. And, for the Jets' perspective, they seemed to embrace that very early on and, played as hard as they could within the rules as they were being called and did a pretty good job in, as well as can be expected, to contain 2 guys that really ate their lunch all regular season.
Yeah, I know some people were criticizing the broadcast for showing not called penalties on McDavid, but I mean, you can point to a number of situations from the series where, calls that were going against the Jets. So have seen it a lot on social media over the last day. Maybe that's who I follow, and maybe it's upset Oilers fans. They did have their going home press conference today. Ken Holland spoke. I know the Jets spoke as well. But I thought we could point out, we never even talked yesterday about the puck over glass, which seems to be the most easy penalty to call that wasn't called in Game 4, but they did eventually get one back in overtime. Now, they didn't score on the power play, but, like, can we just what do you think of this puck over glass? I mean, is it the dumbest rule? Do we need to just get rid of it?
It's the best rule. It's the best rule. It is the best rule. I am 100% behind the puck over glass. And, the reason why I say it's the best is because it's clear cut. I mean, there's no degree of did the defenseman or did the player shoot it directly over the glass. It is a yes or no thing. And, you wonder why. And I know there's a lot of complaining about it, but you can't blame anyone else for it. I guess there will be a time where there is sort of a real unlucky deflection directly out, and those are somewhat unfortunate. But I would far rather have the rule the way it is right now, called the way it is right now, than have the option for defensemen when they're under stress or duress in their own end, just being able to flip it over the glass for a timeout and a face-off. I mean, that's the reason why the rule was put in. And to be honest with you, with how close these games are being officiated and how many penalties, are sort of let go at this time, I have to say, Reem, that I really think that this is probably the most fair penalty that gets called because everyone knows what the rule is beforehand. And if you do it, you're going to be on the power play. And listen, I have no issues with power plays and overtime if it's a penalty. And listen, a lot of things don't become penalties when we get to OT. But as far as the puck over glass, I mean, I don't know what anyone could possibly complain about. It's pretty clear cut. Don't do it if you don't want to spend 2 minutes in the box.
Yeah, that's fair. I think there was one that, I guess you couldn't really tell from the camera. You couldn't see the top. Maybe it chipped over the top. Sometimes you have, okay, was it deflected? Was it not? I don't think it's automatically reviewable, but I don't know.
I'm fine if they did. If it was very close. I mean, listen, these are very important calls. I'd have absolutely no issue if in a situation like that, they, use the help of video replay to make it happen and to make sure that they're right. I think it's probably the right thing to do because these can be game-changing calls. Mm-hmm. But as far as the rule itself, I have no time for the complaining about it because there's a reason why it was put in. I think it's probably the most fair book in the rule book because we all know the situation before it. And if you're worried about it, don't take the chance that it might go out. All right, we'll get Remo back in here in a minute. Before we bring Tim Campbell in, I want to shout out a few of our sponsors, beginning with our good friends at Not AutoCorp. With Winnipeg Sports Talk on board since day one, have been incredibly important in getting us to this point and have made many of our listeners, friends, family members happy with incredible new vehicles out at Not AutoCorp. And by the way, look at Remis with the beautiful graphics now for our reads. Holy smokes. There it is. You can see the beautiful Not AutoCorp showroom at Waverly and McGillivray. Pop by there, see all the vehicles, including new Tesla stock coming in weekly. They'll also help you consign your vehicle if you're in a lease right now or have a vehicle that you're looking to move on from. They'll do it all for you and get you max value for your vehicle at Not AutoCorp. Thanks again to Trevor and the entire Not AutoCorp team. I know they're pulling big time for the Winnipeg Jets now going into round number 2. Of course, we do have hockey tonight. It's going to be a few days before we get to game night for the Winnipeg Jets, but every night's game night now with the Stanley Cup Playoffs on. And Boston Pizza has you covered. If you're thinking about the game day deal with the spicy pierogi pizza, the Meteor pizza, and the case of wings, be good for the family. Or this is my favorite right here, the pizza flights. I believe we've got, in fact, this is how well I know the menu. At the bottom, that is the spicy pierogi pizza. Top right, that is the Meteor. And on the left is the bourbon barbecue chicken pizza, which has quickly become one of my favorites. That's the pizza flights, $18.99, 3 specialty mini pizzas, 3 dips. Fantastic for a couple people munching on during the game. And finally, a Royal Sports. It's playoff time, and you know where to go. Get all your whiteout gear at Royal Sports. And I did see today, give them a follow on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina. They've got a promo right now where they've got tons of new whiteout gear, as you can see. They've also got jerseys. And I mentioned the camping equipment that they have. They're also an official Yeti mug and cooler location. They've got Jets Yetis. So right now, if you get a white jersey or white oak gear or a Winnipeg Jets Yeti mug, you'll also get a free car flag. And it'd be nice to see a few more flags going driving around the city. We've had some great parades. Maybe get the flags on there. You'll get a free one at Royal Sports if you get the Yeti Jets mug or white oak gear. Find out more. That's all right now down at 750 Pembina Highway. Shout out to the Royal Boys for their support of us from day one as well. All right. Coach Paul Maurice coming up a little later on. Welcome to everybody in the chat, especially the new folks that maybe hadn't seen us beforehand. If you're here, hit the like button and make sure you hit that red subscribe button so you'll join us daily. Hit the bell as well, and you'll be notified when we go live. But just so you know, every day, 1 o'clock here on YouTube. We'll get it into your favorite podcast feed by 3 or 3:30 in the afternoon. Coach Maurice coming up a little later on, but right now, let's welcome in Tim Campbell from NHL.com. Tim has been covering this hockey team since the old days when the Oilers used to haunt the Winnipeg Jets, but that's all ancient history now, right, Tim? How are you?
It's ancient, and I'm well. How are you today?
I'm great. I'm more well-rested today than I was yesterday. I imagine that's the same for you. Hey, before we get to the series, I'm sure we saw Kenny and Rennie doing their show at about 3:30 in the morning from Bell MTS Place, still with 250 people fired up, wanting every bit of Jets action. What was it like for you? I know you were up quite late. You got a late game to begin with. It goes to triple overtime. It's the end of the series. For someone covering the series in your role, take us through the end of puck drop for the rest of the evening as to what you were up and how long you were up.
Yeah, the end of the game was just kind of the start of it. For a lot of us, and I was by far not the last one to leave the press box. I think it was about 2:45 a.m. I certainly didn't have all my work done, but I just thought at that point of the morning that I'd just be more comfortable working in my office at home, since all of our deadlines had been blown, just like all the Winnipeg, the local paper guys, etc. So went out, got my car in the parking garage and sort of swung through the alleyway to go home. And on Carleton Street, there were still, 30, 40, 50 people and 12 or 15 cars with their lights blaring and their horns honking. And, it's almost 3 o'clock in the morning. And they were waiting clearly for some of the players and coaches and team people to be making their way home. And they wanted to clearly give them some support. So they were just, I got a couple thumbs up as I drove by, but, I'm nobody of consequence. But I waved to some of those people trying to encourage them. And I was just amazed that, they were there in the middle of the night. It's really basically the only thing they can do to show the team sort of physically that they support them. And I did observe most of them social distancing and, staying respectful distances apart on both sides of Carleton Street there. So I don't know, it's just a mini scene for me, but certainly had some impact for me in terms of the enthusiasm around the city. And you're right. It was a long night. I got home, had some things to do. And I generally try to get to bed before the sun comes up. But I did not make it on Tuesday morning. It was about 6:15 before I was able to get a couple hours sleep. So an exciting evening, kind of historical for Winnipeg, I think. I really don't know how much vanquishing of demons it was from the past because, that past, Hustler, as you know, is so long ago. But, it's meaningful to a lot of people still in Winnipeg, that past. So to be able to write a new, exciting kind of chapter with this playoff series, I think that's also meaningful to more experienced fans as well as to newer fans who've, really gotten invested in Jets 2.0. It's all exciting stuff for me. And it's, I don't know, you tell me what you think, but I think it's kind of neat to have a new chapter to finally add to the old chapter because we haven't been able to add very many chapters here in Winnipeg in recent times.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. And the best part about it is the chapter had a different ending than every other one that we had in the past, which certainly if you're on this side of the if you're around here geographically, probably a bit more palatable than maybe some of the endings to previous chapters in this long story. Hey, by the way, welcome to everyone. You know that what's to come. We're getting some Leafs crew in here in the chat, which is always
Oh, dear.
welcome. I see Leafs Nation here wondering, how can the rest of Canada not cheer for Canada's team? Well, they're going to be cheering against the Maple Leafs for the Winnipeg Jets. This is going to be the one way we really do unite the country. And it's going to be the team in the middle of the country bringing everyone together. You're with us or against us. Anyways, welcome Leafs Nation and everyone else in here. Tim, this series, it's still stunning that we're talking about a 4-game sweep because of the razor-thin margin of all of these games. But in your opinion, for 4 games that were so close, how are we sitting here talking about, a week off for the team and figuring out who they're going to play in the second round right now?
Well, here's my theory. The precursor to this series was somewhat misconstrued in my opinion. I mean, I'm on the record from our NHL.com picks. I chose the Oilers, and I'd seen so much of McDavid's A+++ game in the last 20 games of the regular season, covered that extensively, and I just thought he was on this trajectory that it would be next to impossible to stop him or slow him down. And on that, I was wrong. And I think that's what the series turned out to be, that, there was just too much sentiment about what the last 15 or 20 games of the regular season meant. And I did write this on NHL.com after, I believe, game 2, that I think universally, I'm not sure I saw this broken down anywhere that I was looking at, and I can't say I did an extensive homework project before it started, but that the Jets had lost 9 of the last 12 games, which is an accurate statement. But that's too easy, and I don't want to say it's lazy, but if you just take that as the truth and that it's meaningful, you really miss the boat going into this series, because the 9 losses in 12 games did involve the 7-game losing streak. But after the streak was over, I think you saw something different from the Jets, and the clues were there if you cared to look for them. And I believe my homework, showed that, just a very easy homework, that in those last 5 games, there were only 9 goals against, and one of them was into an empty net in a game which they lost because of, a couple of, I don't want to say they were fluky deflections, but, deflected goals. They weren't systemic errors or, major blunders. It was a close game that included an empty net goal, and that was against the Ottawa Senators. And the other game they lost in the last 5 was when the opposing goalie stood on his head, which has been known to happen a time or two in the NHL. So those things might suggest to you that the Jets game was changing or had somewhat changed from the losing streak. The players' comments were certainly leading you in that direction if you cared to listen. And so, with that little bit of a style change, I think understanding what Winnipeg was going to be facing in Edmonton, including Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, I think you saw a Jets team changing its focus, and to be noted then, that's what happened in the series. And I still hear some of these non-believing comments out of Edmonton. I monitor the Oilers regularly. It's part of what I do at NHL.com. And even yesterday, I almost had to shake my head at hearing Leon Draisaitl say, and I do admire the belief and the will, but say if the series was played over again, he didn't see how it could turn out any other way but them winning. And that suggests to me that he wasn't paying attention. I know on the ice you maybe don't see it the same as from above, or it's hard to look at the result when you've just finished a really emotional end to it. On their part, not good, but when you look at the series and play again, if it's played again, I would really suggest that, if it was played again, the Jets would win 70 to 80% of the time. That's just the way it was played. I'm not saying the Oilers played poorly, but I think the Jets, modified their game enough they didn't nullify Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, but they sort of evened the playing field in many ways, and then let their superior depth, make a difference. And I'm not suggesting that maybe any one player on Winnipeg was better than McDavid or Draisaitl and their abilities in that series, but it's a team game, not an individual game. And I did go and look this up this morning, just so I wouldn't come on here and embarrass myself with you. But, to make my point about McDavid and Draisaitl against the Jets, in the series, the Jets had more goals than the Oilers when Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl were on the ice. And that takes out the power plays, of course. So it's the old plus minus stat. And I don't want people, chasing after me because I brought up plus minus somewhere in public, but you're not supposed to do it. You're not supposed to do that anymore. But it's just a matter of who's on the ice for what goals. The Jets were plus against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl at 5-on-5.
Well,
that should tell you so much about how the series went and what the Jets did. And I'll leave it at that. I think that's probably the most important thing to know about the first round. And, they'll analyze it how they wish in Edmonton and Winnipeg, but those are the facts of how the games were played. I know they were close. No one's suggesting they weren't, but in each and every instance, the Jets found the way and the Oilers did not. And that's why Winnipeg's in the second round.
I'm glad you brought up those numbers about Draisaitl and McDavid being on the ice, because those were numbers that we did talk about a lot going into this series. The fact that McDavid had eaten the Jets' lunch. I mean, he had 22 points in 9 games. I mean, that's like 20% of his of the 105 points he had on the year, even more than that. And a big part of that was at the expense of Mark Scheifele's line. Your thoughts on how Scheifele, Connor, and especially Blake Wheeler stepped up and were up to the challenge in a way that we did not see in 9 head-to-head matchups this season?
Well, I think the answer is that the answer involves the word sacrifice, and it's sacrificing some of their offense, which they clearly did. Although you can look at the stats and see, they each had some points. I think maybe did Wheeler have 5 points in the series? I don't have the stats right in front of me. And Scheifele had 3 or 4, and then that's essentially what Draisaitl and McDavid had. So, but I think they figured out that, those guys they're quick and they're ultra skilled and they're going to make their plays. But let's try to not, this quote from Paul Maurice sticks with me very solidly from early on. Let's try not to help them. Let's try not to make it easy for them. They're good. They're going to do their thing. But they don't need our help. All right. So I think that philosophy and that strategy was very evident to me, that they could recognize when Edmonton had the puck and was bringing it up. And if McDavid was getting going, there always had to be someone in the way, or to try to, not give him a straight line, 110 mile an hour runway to come attacking, make him shift and go through 2 or 3 players, or have to go off in a different direction a bit to do what he wanted to do. Now he did it. He did rush numerous times in the series, and then the Jets did their best to defend it by backpedaling and collapsing and what have you. But generally, they were able to cut off a lot of the rushes and kill the plays before they became something really too dangerous. And I honestly, isn't that really about what you can do against McDavid and Draisaitl? Like, I don't know if that's the ultimate solution, but the Jets were very diligent with it. And the other thing, and I don't want to take credit for this observation, although I certainly did notice it, but maybe realized its importance. I had a nice chat with Louis DeBrusque, who's the color commentator for Hockey Night in Canada, who was assigned to the series. I had a chat with him in one of the overtime or one of the late intermissions in Game 4, and he was just thoroughly impressed with how Winnipeg sticks and getting things in the way of every Oiler trying to make a play. He thought that was maybe the most impressive thing about Winnipeg's adjustment or performance in the series. And when you really think about that, that's kind of what it comes down to, right? Getting in the way, disrupting your opponent, and then, trying to do what you can do. So thinking of that, I thought, well, okay, I would like to find a bit of evidence for that in terms of the numbers, even though I'm not maybe the world's greatest numbers person, but it's right there if you go looking for it. I didn't look today to see if last night's results might have changed it, but I doubt it. But Winnipeg had 101 block shots in the series, and on a 60-minute average, on a per normal game average, it was the most of any team in the playoffs. So there you go. I mean, that's it right there. That the Oilers tried, but Winnipeg was in the way at a lot of times. And I think with the talented forward group they have, and if you had said to me in your preseason preview, Hustler, about the Jets, the forecast looking through, that they would become kind of an obstructionist team. Not sure it would have gone to a full laughter, but there you have it. What do they say? Horses for courses. And then that would lead me to my, to the ultimate reason. And I would think Paul Maurice and his crew ought to get some credit for this. And I'm not sure how much of that I've seen so far or heard, but again, I'm, kind of locked in my house like a lot of people. But they came up with a pretty astute plan here, and the coaches don't execute it. The players certainly execute it. So the coach doesn't certainly ever get all the credit. He rarely gets the credit he probably should, but he's certainly the first one everyone goes chasing after when they lose some games in a row. So, I mean, that's my opinion on the series. They had a really, really good plan that probably was well researched, and more importantly, they were able to convince their players that this is how we ought to do things. And I think those players executed it pretty well.
No, I would absolutely agree with you on that. And speaking of the coach, Paul Maurice, he's going to join us live in less than half an hour right now. If you've just popped in, really looking forward to that. We've talked about that quite a bit over the last couple of days about the things the Jets did better than Edmonton. But what's interesting, and this really does come back to coaching, Tim, is just how prepared the Jets were for how different the playoffs were going to be than the regular season. And certainly the experience, I think, of Maurice, but also experience of a number of players in the Jet locker room would go to that. You mentioned the price that they were being paid when it came to block shots, sticks in the right way. The other thing that's much harder, I think, to quantify, but anyone that watched what we just saw for 4 games as opposed to the last month of the season, I'm sure would agree that the Jets' puck management was light years ahead of where it was when they were struggling. And I'm not sure that, and I'm going to ask Paul about this, I'm not sure whether that boils down to a focus on doing this, basically adding the simplicity into the game that they needed to get back to that point, and maybe making it a bit easier to do that. But, there was at times where just the simple decision-making seemed out of whack during that slump. And, you'd be hard-pressed to find very many instances of the players. Sometimes things may not have been executed perfectly, but more often than not, pretty much exclusively, they were making the right decisions. And I'd imagine the coach, certainly would get some credit for that, but also the buy-in of the team accepting what their challenge was every night against Edmonton.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Hustler. That's actually quite a good observation. And I think it's an element of game. It's an element of game watching that's underappreciated. I think. I mean, players, they know how to play. They know what to do. They know the things they should do. I mean, you don't get to the National Hockey League as a player if you don't know those things. I mean, that's kind of core stuff that probably shouldn't have to be reviewed too often if you're on an NHL team. But in watching a game, I think a lot of fans, whether casual or serious, would do well to pay more attention to what you just talked about, how you take care of the puck, and it goes back to maybe that little point I made about not helping McDavid and Draisaitl. I mean, Dave Tippett made a really astute point to my way of thinking yesterday about turnovers, that, we excoriate this player and that player for this giveaway and that giveaway, but watch a game and just write down every time one team hands the puck to another. I mean, a dump in is a giveaway, really. I mean, don't ever bring that up with Scotty Bowman. You drive him around the bend. Excuse me. So the puck changes hands so many times in a game. And so, the idea is, don't give it away more than you have to. It's not don't ever give it away. I mean, that's a dumb thing to say. If you just say don't give the puck away, because that doesn't really fit hockey the way it's played today. It's don't give it away more than you have to. And, I'm 100% with you on how the Jets took that and into the series. And they, by and large, they didn't help the Oilers too much with giveaways, especially in the dangerous areas. And, sometimes you do. Sometimes just getting rid of the puck to a safer area to fight another day or fight another minute on in the game is a great play when you're under duress. But I'll dig a little deeper into what you said now. And I think this is something, again, we probably collectively as fans and others that watch the team probably don't give this team enough credit for, and that's that the game is fast, and there's, as we get to the playoffs and approaching the playoffs, it's faster in that there's more pressure on you at every point of the ice. Like, teams are after the puck now all the time. There's not so much passivity, although teams can drop back and maybe not forecheck as hard, but the pressure on the puck is hard everywhere on the ice. And so to be a good player in that circumstance, you have to be able to process what's coming at you when you have the puck and know what to do with it. And it's it's kind of the old Gretzky thing. You've got to be able to see the game 4 plays ahead, or, in Gretzky's case, about 7, and know what you can and might do with the puck and should do with the puck. So there's where I think some credit comes to the Jets players, that, they made a lot of those really good decisions, picked the right options. And to be able to do that, though, I mean, it's easy for you and me to sit here and draw it on our little X's and O's and talk about it. But to do that under the duress of an NHL playoff game, under the lights, I know the fans aren't there to create the noise, but the pressure is there nonetheless, because we're talking about the Stanley Cup. You have to be a good player. You have to have reps in making these decisions and being physically able to make these plays. So look, the Jets players were able to make a lot of these good plays. Some of them, unheralded plays. They'll never be on a highlight reel, just getting a puck to safety sometimes when it's in peril in your end. Well, and the Jets have the players who could make those plays enough in this series. And that makes a difference more than folks know. And you're right to call it puck management. And it's about reducing the amount of help you give the other team.
Well, and the biggest part of that is certainly the ones that'll blow up on you are in your own end. And we've been talking about the Jets defense all season long. Can they get the puck out of their own end? Can they do all those things? And, specifically to the Jet blue line, I think pretty much everyone stepped up and raised their level. I don't know if anyone did it more than Josh Morrissey. We've had talks about Morrissey's sort of up and down season. This, in my opinion, was the best that he'd played at any point this year. And, we saw how much Paul Maurice relied on him, but Neil Pionk, continued to make excellent decisions. And I don't know what we can say about this pairing of Tucker Poolman and Logan Stanley, but Tim, I mean, that third pairing seemed to be such a cause of concern. Who was it going to be? How much were they going to play? What were they going to be able to do? And it was interesting they ended up with Poolman and Stanley because, I mean, by my count, they probably didn't play more than a period or two together all season long. And then there they are in game 1, both being incredibly impactful to the game win, which I think was a great sign of what was to come. Just thoughts on the Jet blue line and that third pairing and how much they played and how much they contributed to that 4-game sweep. A good point. I don't know how much. I really don't know if you can draw the straight lines from that subject to the result of a 4-game series, but you can draw the line to the contributions and to upping the quality of play of the group in general. So here's my theory, and this will be definitely against the grain. And I can hear the criticism coming already, but like, in a way, it doesn't really matter who's together. I mean, you're always looking for the best chemistry, but when it comes to crunch time, you have to be able to have these unlikely matchups or pairings. So you're right. Poolman and Stanley, not a lot together in terms of track record. But to me, this is why the coach is important in terms of how the team looks. And this goes to the whole lineup, not just the defense. So all season long, the Jets were changing their lines and changing their D pairs. It was a regular occurrence. So there were some hair on fire people who didn't like that in terms of fans and media this year. I know it's an obsession with some about who's on whose line and what the D pairings are. And to me, I don't know. This is something I learned to not ignore, but to learn to take less seriously a long, long time ago. That if you really step back, 1 or 2 steps, that there are so few teams that keep the lines together all the time. Like, you could probably count them on one hand in the NHL, and probably less.
Like everybody's changing all the time. It's necessitated by injuries, by trades, by other roster decisions. Players have to play with if you can only play with one player, you're not getting to the NHL. Basically, that's how it works. You might find a good line mate when you get to the NHL, like Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler. But if Mark Scheifele had come into the league and there was only one player on the planet Earth he could play with, he wouldn't be in the NHL. It just would never have happened. So these players are adaptable. They're resilient. They know how to develop chemistry. It doesn't work with every teammate that they try it with, but it's certainly more than one. So the obsession with what the lines are sometimes is way overdone. Of course, I pay attention to it because there's interest in it, but it goes the same for the defense pairings that, to move them around. Paul was changing things all season long, and I know there are a lot of people, they don't like that. I guess change is hard for all of us, including me. But in the end, that all of that changing develops an ability in these players to be adaptable. And in the case of Stanley and Pullman, they adapted. Like Pullman's played with lots of defensemen on the Jets. In his career, in his real sort of career at North Dakota, he played a year at forward. Like, you don't think he's not adaptable? Of course he's adaptable. And Logan Stanley is opened a lot of eyes this year, and I don't think he'd be an NHL player if he wasn't, somewhat adaptable. So it didn't surprise me that those guys could fit together. And yes, in the end, that those guys were able to continue to play was a help, because if you look at their opponents who went down to 4 defensemen basically 6 minutes into the third period, there's a tax on that. There's a toll on that when you go to 1 overtime, 2 overtimes, 3 overtimes. And it's not a lack of willingness, but you could see in that 3 overtime game, Hustler, and I know you could see it, the pace declining and the mistakes increasing. And, to me, it was just, I would just marvel to those players to be able to even move their legs in the third overtime and to think to do anything, even somewhat correctly, because that's the beauty of overtime. The fatigue gets in there, and it's always something odd that happens, but it's bound to happen. And it's, that it lasted that long the other night is a tribute to those players. It's indescribable, the skill and ability they have to carry on so long at such a high level for our enjoyment and entertainment. It was truly a thing to marvel at.
Well, it was, and the concept of the Jets, maybe not having the super elite high end McDavid or Draisaitl in their squad, but being a more deep team, I think really played itself out more than any in game number 4.
Totally agree.
And I mean, listen, part of it I get. I mean, Tips has his back against the wall. If they don't win, there's no tomorrow. So, I mean, he's not holding anything in the chamber. But at the same time, when you go down to 4 defensemen early in the third period, go 3 overtimes, have Darnell Nurse play 15 plus minutes in the first overtime period alone, I mean, you are tempting the law of diminishing returns. And until you get other players out, I mean, they didn't have a Peter Klima coming off the bench in the 4th overtime to be the hero. They just kept on rolling those guys. And from Maurice's perspective, he was able to roll 3 lines and had said that he was actually ready right before Kyle Connor scored the goal to actually get the 4th line out there. And that didn't seem to be an option that Dave Tippett felt comfortable considering the predicament his team was in.
No, and you'll notice, like, when they near the end of that penalty kill and then third overtime, they did bring Ethan Bear. He did send Ethan Bear out to the ice, and Ethan had not played since a bit of a fatal giveaway in the third period, 6 minutes into the third period. He'd not played in, almost an hour of game time, or maybe it was just a little over an hour of game time. And then he's a young player. That's got to be a hard thing to process, to sit there through 3 periods and a little more. I don't know what the clock time of that would be, like your watch time, not the score clock, and then be told by your coach to get out there. I mean, he defended that penalty very well. He actually made a really good play to stop Connor, from trying to attack the net near the end of that power play, and was able to get the puck turned over and sent up to McDavid, who, made that small error that Pionk was able to turn, that little chip play to basically turn that puck right back up the ice to leave Connor open. So, I mean, Bear, that was the first appearance in the game in more than 60 minutes of playing time. A really tough thing to do. And, but obviously Dave realized maybe the importance that some of these guys I've sat down, I'm going to need to throw them out there. Like I think Jujhar Khaira came out to kill part of that penalty, and he too had been not on the ice for a long, long time before he came out there. And to his credit, was able to get the job done on that penalty kill for Edmonton. So, hey, you're right. It's a tough thing, but it goes, once again, whatever the result, I mean, that those players could go out there and perform like they did in such a long game, a taxing game with such a cost. Never mind that they had played a crazy game the night before. It will be a thing that sticks with me for a long time, having, been one of the very fortunate ones to be present there and watch it with my own eyes. It was an amazing thing, that triple overtime game.
Tim, great stuff. One more question for you. We do have, it seems like the Leaf fans, or many of them, have already moved on from Montreal, and they're getting ready for the Winnipeg Jets, and they're joining us here in the chat. I'm not going to ask Paul Maurice this because he's not going to talk about opponent until they know they're playing the opponent. But let's for a minute just assume that the Leafs get this done. Winnipeg, Toronto, what do you think about the matchup? And I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about the regular season matchup against the Oilers, which didn't mean much. Certainly the Leafs are in a situation where they don't have John Tavares, which changes things a little bit. But looking into the crystal ball, just thoughts on the matchup, challenges for the Jets, and certainly what the Leafs are going to be bringing to the table, assuming they'll be down their captain and number 2 center.
Well, the Leafs, I don't know. I think the Leafs are going to be a deeper opponent than Edmonton. But I don't, can't say I've looked too hard at it. I really don't know that the Jets will be required to make any drastic changes to give themselves the best chance. Now, it'll be a good question for the coach once the matchup is set. But I just can't envision this week in the lead up to the next series beginning, you're going to hear anyone, never mind Paul Maurice. I don't think you're going to hear anybody on the Jets saying, well, that worked for Edmonton, but now we have to do this completely other different thing. No, that's, the commitment to defense and being conscientious with the puck, as you mentioned, the puck management. I mean, all of those things are going to run universal from series to series. The matchups, if there are going to be any, will be up to the coaches and how much they really and truly share in the playoffs. I don't know. So I see the Jets as having a pretty easy, would never be the right word in the playoffs, but having a pretty straightforward week. There'll be some tendencies they'll, refamiliarize themselves with, and then they'll just practice when they practice. They'll practice doing the same sorts of things. And that's, trying to be on top of the puck when they're defending, like always try to be between yourself or your opponent with the puck and the goal, be in the way as much as possible and, play it hard and make the responsible plays. Don't help your opponent. I don't know. I mean, that's going to be universal if there's 4 rounds this season or whatever, for whatever teams that go 4 rounds. You're going to hear every coach saying that, but it's who will buy into it and take it to heart the most. Those are the things, I'll be looking for. And then, maybe some of the exterior or extraneous things I think will be also similar for the Jets. So maybe familiarity will help them. And that's that, it's highly likely the Jets will find a lot of respect outside of, their own city. I don't think the Oilers, I don't want to say the Oilers took them lightly, but I don't know that Edmonton or those who watch the Oilers had much regard for the Jets or their chances. And I would expect a lot of the same thing in the next round. Wouldn't you?
Oh yeah. I just thought they might get a mention on an intermission or something, but
yeah. Don't lose any sleep on it though. You'll do better if you don't.
I agree.
Yeah.
Tim, thank you so much for doing this. This is a great chat. Everyone in the chat that's with us live on YouTube certainly loved it. And I imagine you'll have lots coming up over the next few days, looking ahead to game 2 and a potential Jets-Leafs matchup. But I guess we got to figure out what happens with game 5 tomorrow, but it certainly looks that way. And if we had fun during this first round against Edmonton, just wait till things get going with the center of the universe.
Yes, I'm looking forward to more games wherever they may be.
Bring it on. Thanks so much, my friend.
Thanks,
Great
Huss.
chat. There's Tim Campbell. You can follow him on Twitter at TimNHL and read all of his fine work covering the Jets, Flames, Oilers in at NHL.com. All right, if you're just popping in right now, great to have you with us. Shout out to all the Leaf fans that are with us. This actually has been fun, and it seems like it's been pretty civil too. So that's the way we like it. I'd much rather have Jets and Leafs fans having some fun, going back at each other, as opposed to COVID takes and all that stuff. So let's keep it the way it is. Respectful, fun, bring it on. That's what we do here at Winnipeg Sports Talk. So welcome everyone that's new. And if you haven't already, hook us up. Hit the sub button if you will. Give us a like. We'll do that. So Coach Paul Maurice coming up in just a few minutes. Do want to quickly thank a few of our other sponsors. Certainly Nick and Nikki DQ Group. That is Dairy Queen Niverville, Dairy Queen Northgate, Dairy Queen Polo Park, and Dairy Queen St. Anne's. I think I mentioned yesterday, pop by, said hi to Nick and the gang, grab the Drumstick Blizzard. These are some of the wonderful blizzards that you have, but if you were going and you're a drumstick fan, you have to try the new Drumstick Blizzard. It's absolutely amazing. It pairs well with an ultimate grill burger, which I've said for a long time, maybe the most underrated. It's the Nikolai Ehlers of fast food burgers, the most underrated one on the market. Check it out, any of the 4 Nick and Nikki DQs. And as I said, we'll do another couple Jets cakes at some point. But if you do have a birthday party, some sort of gathering a family gathering, I guess right now, because there's no other gatherings. You can hit them up on Instagram at DQ Manitoba. Nick and Nikki and their staff will get everything you need for a custom-made cake and have it ready for you when you want to pick up. Thanks again to Nick and Nikki for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Now, Little Brown Jug, our brewing partners, very happy about this because, of course, they've just relaunched the new website. At littlebrownjug.ca. They've made it easier than ever to order all the delicious Little Brown Jug beers, including the new Hefeweizen and the Summer Lager. Highly recommended, both of them available right now. But also, we've got a couple of gift cards for the online store, and we'll direct you to our Instagram after the show today. We're going to have an Instagram contest where you can go on. Make sure you're following us, tag a friend, and we'll be loading up some people for a marble race on Friday. And I think we might do one as well at the end of today's show. So make sure you stick around for that. We'll grab some people from the YouTube chat, have some fun, and hook you up with some delicious Little Brown Jug. And don't forget, you can also, if you want, get the home delivery, or you can pick it up at the garden center coming up on the weekend. They're going to be out. Let me just make sure that I've got this right, because they're doing it at Chernebeats Saturday and Sunday, 11 to 4. You can order online and say pick up at Chernebeats Garden Center in the cart and go right there. And don't forget, last chance to enter at any of the 5 bottle stop locations connected to Canadiens before May 31st to win that delicious 1919 fridge contest. Just do a scan, do a post, and you can get in on that. Oh, and the Black Lager is on special right now for $3.36 a can. Find it at Liquor Mart, select beer stores, or throughout the brand new website for home delivery and pickup. And I think we might even get a little gift package for the coach from Little Brown Jug as well. So big thanks to Dustin and the Little Brown Jug team for their continued support of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. And do have to give a shout out to Breezy Bend Country Club, our golf sponsor this year. Cannot wait. We just need to get this weather a little bit nicer. Not very pleased right now. Oh, there's a shot of beautiful Breezy. You can see that new patio right there. That's where we do some of our best work, right up there. Oh, you can't see it. Anyways, Breezy Bend, check them out online at breezybend.ca. Waiting list growing for next year. If you're thinking about moving to an incredible private club, great junior program for the kids, ladies program as well, really is the place to be for the whole family. Find out more with Corey. And speaking of Breezy and golf, before we get to the coach, and Remo, maybe you want to come in for this. Tom Brady. And everyone knows I'm not a Brady guy. I am a Mahomes guy. Brady has haunted me for 20 years, so there's a lot of scar tissue on that. But Tom Brady's Instagram game is so good right now, he's slowly maybe even converting me. There's the announcement, the next edition of The Match. You remember originally it was Tiger and Phil. With people last year, Steph Curry and Brady were involved, or Peyton Manning was in it as well. This year, it is going to be Phil Mickelson and Tom Brady taking on Bryson DeChambeau and Aaron Rodgers. And well, for one day at least, I will be a Tom Brady guy. But Remo, the best part about this is that Tom Brady, who listen, I know he's the greatest quarterback of all time right now. However, he is, shooting to the top of best athletes on social media. We've all seen the hilarious memes that have come out of Brooks Koepka's disgust at his arch rival Bryson DeChambeau walking by and all the memes that have spurred from it. Now it seems it's Tom Brady making memes about Aaron Rodgers and Bryson DeChambeau and having a heck of a lot of fun of that. So that was just announced today. We'll look forward to having a lot of fun. Yeah, here is one. So these are actually tweeted out by Brady. Bryson, happy to be here. Aaron realizing he has to spend the whole day with Bryson DeChambeau. So hopefully Brady still has some more of those in the chamber as we go forward to the match. But again, our focus right now is entirely on the Winnipeg Jets. 4-game sweep of the Edmonton Oilers and looking ahead to round 2. And couldn't be more happy to welcome in for the first time on Winnipeg Sports Talk, the head coach of the Winnipeg Jets, Paul Maurice, who joins us right now. Paul, thank you so much for doing this, and congratulations. I imagine going into this series, you didn't anticipate that you would be talking about a series that's over after 4 games, and yet here we are. First off, congrats.
Yeah, thank you very much. No, you're right. Like, you go into that series with the team, and they had just a wonderful year, when they really did make great strides in their game. We didn't think it before, and it doesn't feel like it, right? We get through 4-game sweeps, don't feel like that. That was felt like we played 10 games, and it was a grinder, every one of them.
Well, to say the least. And I mean, the difference in each game was about as razor thin a margin as they come. I mean, how would you describe that series? Because listen, for Winnipeg Jet fans for the next 20, 30 years, they'll all be saying, hey, that was a sweep of the Edmonton Oilers. Yeah, but when you dig into it, you're talking about, a very fine line between winning and losing in each and every of the 4 games.
Yeah, and I think maybe if we had an advantage in the series, it was the comfort level in that expectation, right? We go in as the underdog. They've got what's funny about that series is you're not surprised by McDavid and Draisaitl, or Nurse for that matter. And then you get behind the bench, and it happens every once in a while. Oh, these guys are even better than you think, right? Like, they are so dynamic every time they touch the puck, and you think every time they come up the ice, they come up with control. And we did a fantastic job of limiting maybe their options in the game, but it still didn't matter, right? They're still going to get those chances, and they're going to get to your goaltender, and Connor was so very, very good, and he needed to be. So you're not sitting through – sometimes you get into a game or a playoff game, and your expectation that something's going to happen in the next 5 minutes isn't really that high, right? But those guys come out, and you're thinking, well, got to pick the right words. But, oh, man, something could happen right now because they got the puck. Which made for very, very exciting. The only thing that series was missing was our fans and how much they would have enjoyed it.
Just on the fans, and we've heard that from some of the players. You have these incredible, certainly for Winnipeg Jets in this franchise, historic wins, a huge series, and could you feel the support of people from outside of the building in the community right now? Because it was a very strange situation for people basically at home by themselves or simply with their family, and connecting maybe through social media or something like that, because there wasn't any other option. But do you and the team feel the support?
So it's so different. So for those of us, and a big chunk of us were here in 2018, and the program feeds running the TVs throughout the room. So you can see we got 20,000 people standing outside the building before the game even starts. We'll let another 15 in here, and it's just nonstop, right? And you get a coffee in the morning, and that's all anybody's talking about. So you're immersed in it. And then, you can feel it more because it's there, right? You've kind of been through it. And yes, the social media and probably with our families at home, there's even more phone calls because they're not watching the game with people, right? It's everybody that's connected to you is contacting you. it's just too bad. Like what we were talking about it yesterday, what would it have been like for the fan that had seasons tickets that went to both games, right? So after you totally wore him out with a comeback win in overtime, you brought him back and made him sit through 5 periods of that. There'd have been a whole lot of people not going to work the next day and probably feeling a little bit like we did today. We're still recovering.
Well, I have a feeling that was the case, regardless of whether people were in the building or not. Head coach Paul Maurice of the Winnipeg Jets with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. I want to talk more about the series, the overtime, and looking ahead. But just before, I want to back up for a minute because it was, obviously a very successful season. I mean, for all intents and purposes, you and your team had, basically clinched a playoff spot with about 6 weeks left in the regular season. And then, the final month included a 7-game losing streak, losing 9 of 10. And, I think back to a few very key moments, probably the 6-1 loss to Edmonton, Paul Stastny speaking about where the team was, some of the things that they've been doing catching up. And you on a few times had said, we really hope that this is something that can make this team better and more prepared for the playoffs when it's really going to count. I mean, take us back to maybe the middle of that slump, the 6-1 game, and what was it, or how were you, the veterans, able to kind of turn that thing around and get going in the right direction, but then still come out for game number 1 almost as if none of that had ever happened? Or did it just make you better?
Yeah, it was no doubt. It was a fortunate losing streak, if that's how I'll describe it, because it set up all the things that we needed to do to set up. So we were aware that, so you've got 4 or 5 things going on any given night: your goaltender, your power play, your penalty killing, your 5-on-5 play, those kind of things. And we had all of them kind of slide sideways at the exact same time. And it really made you focus on kind of the 1 or 2 things that would get you back going. And those things, we were giving up an awful lot off the rush. When you looked at the 6-1 game to Edmonton, that was a critical loss for us because you didn't even have to explain it to anybody. You could go in and just show them and say, we just can't do this and have any expectation of winning. And then we started working on that really hard, and you could see it coming. And then you also knew that Connor Hellebuck was going to bounce back. It's just he got into a grind with the rest of the team, and that our special teams, Adam Lowry had been injured. He came back into our lineup. So then a bunch of really kind of key things changed for us. But most importantly, the room just dug in onto 2 or 3 things that we were going to need to do to win the playoffs. And I'm not sure that we would have gotten the focus on those things as hard if we had won 5 of 6 or 7 and gone into Edmonton and be willing to trade chances with those guys and give them just a little bit more room. And then we wouldn't have, we probably wouldn't have beat that team. So it was used well by our veterans. It was used well by our team. It wasn't easy to go through, but there was never a sense of panic, because the one thing I've said all year is I think this is a smart team. I think they have smart veteran leaders, and they can sit on the bench and they can see it on the ice and they understand what's going on. So you don't have to spend as much time convincing them. So they got it figured out real quick, and we got better where we needed to.
Yeah, and no better example of that than what your top line was able to do, both offensively, but maybe more importantly, defensively. And, listen, we talked a lot about the success that McDavid had against your club in the regular season. We just had Tim Campbell on, and, at 5-on-5, they were actually minus for the series, the top guys against your players. And I know the matchup changed a little bit once Ehlers and Dubois came in, and you had an opportunity with the last change to go a little bit more with the Lowry, Kopp, Appleton line. Right. But I'd just like you to talk about the way that top line, Scheifele, Wheeler, and Connor were able to rise to the occasion, not necessarily about scoring goals, and they had some beauties in the series, but more in what they needed to do to not be seeing the red light go on behind Connor Hellebuck.
And it was sacrifice. And I thought it was all of game 2. That was as good a game as Mark Scheifele's played here in a very, very long time. And they had some chances in that game to score that didn't go for them, but it didn't matter because their priority 1. We let that matchup happen, and I wasn't pulling that line off. And again, at that time, Dubois just comes in and Ehlers isn't there. So the rest of our group looks different. So we kind of needed that matchup to happen. And they got an awful lot of confidence with their game. And then when we got home, I left that matchup to start game 3 straight through 2 periods because we had won 2 games on it, and I didn't want to get away from it. And we're also still testing Nick Ehlers to see where he's at. So then we get into the 3rd period of game 3, and it gives you the opportunity to move away from it. But Mark's line in game 2 were the driver in that. Clearly, Connor Hellebuck shut out performance. But in terms of what the players were doing on the ice, they sacrificed their offensive game to play a grinding defensive game and got real comfortable with it.
Paul, I want to ask you about the blue line. From my perspective, I loved yours on this. Josh Morrissey played the best hockey of his entire year, and a year that was up and down at times and had some unique challenges in this series. Neil Pionk continues to, really, show the world what a quality defenseman he is. And then you have a third pairing of significant contributions from Tucker Pullman coming back into the lineup and Logan Stanley, who's maybe been one of the best stories of the Winnipeg Jets season so far. We don't know, you can single somebody out, maybe just speak about the defense overall, but the way everyone raised their level of play in this series against Edmonton.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, and you're right, each one of them is a story. But Josh Morrissey what Josh did was he kind of combined his experience. So if you go back 2 years, he's playing with Jake Trouba at the time. He's still young, but we run him against the other team's best. And that's where he got that experience, and he really excelled. But there really wasn't much of a thought in his mind of anything beyond that, right? He wasn't running a power play. We had Byfuglien and Trouba running the back ends of the power play. And now it's changed for him. So what he was able to do is put the two kind of worlds together. He's on the power play unit now. He puts up numbers, and he was able to do what he had done a couple of years ago against the other team's best, play against the best player in the world, the top 2 offensive players in the world, get that job done. And also that fourth goal certainly we talk about the overtime winners, but the fourth goal, the goal that he scores, might be the most important goal in some ways of the whole series, because it gave us a chance to get to a place that would be pretty good. It's overtime. And we really felt game 4, neither team had a whole lot of energy left. And the idea of having to get on a plane, like if you lose game 3, then you're in trouble in game 4. And you get back on a plane the next day going to Edmonton after both teams went through it, then they would have had a huge advantage on game 6. So I looked at the Morrissey goal as kind of the critical goal of the series, which is funny because we have 3 overtimes. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense what I'm saying, but that goal changed the series as much as the power play goal on the Archibald penalty.
Speaking of overtime, we have lots to talk about considering there was 3 of them in this series. I'm wondering, from a coach's perspective, is the job of coaching different in overtime as opposed as it is to, the first 3 periods of a playoff game? And are there things you're looking at or paying more close attention to, like minute by minute, shift than you might be in the first 60?
For sure it changes. And what's funny about that is anything that I would tell you that you're looking for that's important in terms of the coach's role didn't happen in the triple overtime game because it was such an unusual team that we're playing. So you're looking to get everybody involved. You want to make sure you get your matchups right, but you got to get these guys off the bench. And they shut their 4th line down late in that game. And you're always waiting for an opportunity. I got to get Thompson. I got to get Lewis off the bench. So I started working Perreault back into the lineup. And normally I would have, but I didn't. And I'm sitting there and going, they basically put their whistles away, and I thought they did a good job managing the game. The referees, they've got the 1 penalty and the double overtime that was in the stands. So you're thinking, well, what happens now if we take a penalty? And I've got Thompson and Lewis have been sitting on the bench for an hour and a half. So I had Thompson up. The shift after Kyle Connor scores his goal, Thompson was coming out because I had to get him back into the game. So I was waiting for McDavid line to come out, and I was going to run Thompson in behind Scheif on that shift, and then there was no other shift to send anybody out for, so it was good.
Paul Maurice, head coach of the Winnipeg Jets, with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Jets awaiting their second round opponent in the Stanley Cup Playoffs after a 4-game sweep of the Edmonton Oilers. Coach, without fans in the building, it was sort of funny, with these huge wins and in overtime, they don't have the crowd shots, so they go to the players. And they also go to the bench. And, we saw a pretty epic Rennie Rancourt style quadruple fist pump after the Ehlers goal.
Yeah.
I think Remis is going to show that one up. The game 5 one the game 4 one was a little different. It was a lot of hugging because it's over.
Yeah.
I got to ask you, from your perspective, you have the immediate joy of winning the game, but you're still in the middle of a series. And I'm sure your mind immediately goes to, okay, what's next? What was the difference between your reaction and level of relief, shall we say, from the Game 4 OT win as opposed to games 2 and 3 before the job was finished?
Yeah, I think just the overtimeness, like the comebacks are different, right? Like those kind of games taken on a completely different level. And I don't like, you got a job to do back there as a coach and you're part of it, but you're not any different than the fans about the excitement of your team winning, right? Like and I don't mean that it's my team as the head coach. I mean, it's my team, the one I'm cheering for, right? So it's exactly like the guy or the girl in their living room that was jumping around, losing their mind. I'm no different than them, right? And then you try to compose yourself a little bit and get off the bench so that you don't get on camera doing that. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy it. Like you're holding your breath like everybody else, right? God, you want to win so bad, and then it's a comeback. That one's different in terms of where your emotions get to. When you win a game that's in regulation, and it's, even if it's a goalie out situation, you're kind of working right up until the end. You get your next 2 or 3 shifts planned, and you're timing out the rest of the game, so you can almost feel that coming. But overtimes, you don't know when the next shift is, so it's a completely different animal, and it's a whole lot more fun.
Hey, Coach, how different is the play, your routine and the way you speak to the players, how often you do from the playoffs to the regular season? And I'm wondering the last 3 games have all been overtime. What's going on in between the third period in OT, or if you're going to a double OT, are you in the room? Are you talking to the guys in between? Is that the players? Like, what happens? Like, what do we not see when you're going overtime or in between overtime periods?
So nothing would change in between periods from the regular season. I mean, the mentality is completely different because in the regular season, you're molding and shaping, and you're probably grumpier, right? Like you're pointing out the problems and mistakes and kind of. So it's a different feel when you're walking into the room in a playoff game. If there's mistakes being made, it's something you got to fix, right? So you're not calling a guy. You're saying, listen, we got to watch this. They're hitting us in the middle or whatever it is that they're doing that you're not. So it's a different attitude. And if you don't really have anything to say, there's at very least a change in end zones. So second periods, especially against a team like Edmonton, you've got to be aware if they change certain things that they do. So you'll go in and give them reminders, and then just, it's so positive for the most part with your team, with the way they're playing. You're kind of pumping tires and reminding them of, how it's happened. I mean, we beat the goaltender on 3 clean shots. One was a face-off. The other was an outside rush. I mean, both down the right side of the ice, but the puck's in the net because we made a decision to put the puck at the net, not wait for somebody to join the rush, not look for a better play. The puck just goes to the net. So you kind of leave them with that idea. Everybody's a shooter. Everybody's an overtime hero, right? And if it's on your stick, you can be that guy. So you're reinforcing things, and then you're talking about. So I would talk to the team. There'd only be a handful of times during the regular year you don't go in between periods, and that's usually because you had a lot to say on the bench and there's nothing left to say, and those are usually not happy moments. But you're in the room, and then so it'll be early. Like every coach is different when they go in. I go in around the middle of the intermission to give them their time too, to get back out and talk amongst themselves, and I keep it real short most times.
Paul, just a couple more for you relating to overtime. I won't bother asking about a second round series when you don't know the opponent. Right. I'm sure you'll talk about that at some point when you know who you're playing. But listen, you've done this for a long time. You've been on the bench for a lot of games, a lot of playoff games. Where does that comeback in Game 3 rank with the wildest that you've ever been involved in?
So there've probably been 3 that I would really remember. One of them's Nashville here. We got down, but that was really, really early in the game. And then halfway through the game, we're right back in it. We had a game in Montreal and we were down 3-0 going into the third. Scored early though, and then Mike Therrien was coaching and he was wearing a yellow jacket. All right, so the Habs get a call against them, and Kerry Fraser's doing the game. And Mike gets up on the bench, and he's waving his arms, and he's going ballistic, and Kerry gives him another penalty. And we scored to make it 3-2. It's funny how hockey works. We scored late. Ron Francis is on the team. We scored late in the third period to tie the game, so everybody's berserking. And it's a little bit like last game. Like, I'm on the bench. I've got my third line on the ice for an offensive zone draw. and he changes and he puts his fourth line on the ice. And now I am cursing myself on the bench because I know Koivu's coming off the bench next, which means I can't put my fourth line on the ice, which means I've missed him again. And I've been running 3 lines hard to come back. We win the face-off. Joe Wasicek wins the face-off back to Nick Wallin, and I think it bounced 3 times, and it got through like 9 bats. But we win that. They called it in Carolina. They called that the miracle on Molson, and then Montreal was never the same team. So we get into that game. And like I really thought after that comeback when there was a chance that we could catch Edmonton here and this wouldn't be much of a game. But to give them credit, I mean, they pushed, and that's true. Like McDavid and Draisaitl and Nurse drove that team the next night. Like those guys are special players, and we're very fortunate to have eliminated them. And I don't think 4-0 is a proper or fair indication of how that game went.
Coach, this has been so much fun having you on. Needless to say, everyone in the chat's all fired up. Can't wait to see what comes next. But the final question for you, and this is actually a non-hockey question, but it's somewhat connected to it. So Game 4, you go to triple overtime. I don't know what time Kyle Connor scored, but it was after 1 a.m.
Right.
You come back out, the players speak, you do your media. So you're probably finished at like 2 a.m. You've still got that buzz from the game.
Right.
Then what do? How long does it take you to decompress? Like, what time did you get to bed that night? And did you actually sleep in for once after that game on Monday?
You know what's funny about that is like after some of the biggest wins of the year, you get on the bus and it's dead quiet. And you would think we lost, but there's a fatigue that sets in right away. So you sat back in the coach's office and we just kind of stared at each other, right? Like it was talked about the next day. I got home, it was about 3:15, and my family was still up because they were still, which is, rare. It's probably about 4:00 that we went down. And yeah, you know what? We work early here. Like this is a really early morning job. Like most of us, I think, get up between 5 and 5:30 and you come to the rink. So, but no, I didn't get here till about 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock the next day. So I did. I don't know if I slept very well, but I slept happy or didn't sleep. It didn't bother me a bit. If I wasn't asleep, I was in a great mood. So it was one of those days. And some nights you can sleep happy and some nights you don't sleep when you're grumpy, but I was in a pretty good mood.
I'll tell you what, we had a whole city that needed a little bit of extra sleep, maybe an afternoon nap yesterday.
Right
Coach, congratulations. People are fired up. Can't wait to see what happens in round 2. Really appreciate you joining us. And
my pleasure.
I know we'll have hopefully there's 12 more wins to come. So our friends at Little Brown Jug, we're going to send over. You can have a celebratory one. We'll make sure there's 12 for 12 more W's.
Perfect. Thanks very much for having me. I enjoyed it.
Hey, thanks very much, Coach. There he is, Coach Paul Maurice of the Winnipeg Jets, joining us on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. And yes, I did talk to our friend Dustin over at Little Brown Jug. They were fired up that the coach was on. And I said, well, you know what I mean? Actually, if we sent over 16, could quickly take down 4 that have already been earned and then a victory beer for the next 12 wins. Who knows? Anyways, honestly, thanks to Scott Brown for making that happen. It's been a while since I had a chance to get the coach on the program, so I'm very appreciative of it. And to be honest with you, I've got to thank so many Jet fans with us here that have been with us on Winnipeg Sports Talk, because I think if we hadn't had the response and turnout every day of people, wanting us and to join us talking about the Winnipeg Jets, we probably haven't had the incredible guests that we've had so far from the hockey club. So many thanks to roll out after having the coach on. Let's get Remis back in here. What a show we've had today. Huge numbers in the chat as always. And pretty awesome chat with the coach. And, it's all about timing. I mean, Paul Maurice is an experienced veteran. I mean, he's all business, but to have this opportunity to get him on today with a little bit of downtime before the next round was almost the perfect time to have the coach. And, he's always great in front of a microphone, but it's even cooler to be able to hit him with some of the questions we've heard from some people here in the chat room over the last few days and talk to him about that big win and maybe some of the things we don't normally get out of the pressers after the games.
Yeah, that was a good. I was curious what you do after a win like that. It sounds like he just was a normal day for him. He came to work maybe a bit later, but I thought he would like sleep in till like noon or something after go through that kind of series. But great insight, and yeah, thank you to everyone in chat who's come in and chatted because of that we were able to have guys like Paul Maurice and before Stasny, Ehlers, Kopp on the show. So that was pretty cool and awesome to have everyone here. You know, Paul Maurice is always great with the media, telling some great stories there about time in Carolina, and just talking about the team this season. So a lot of fun and great seeing everyone in chat. Thank you so much. All the likes, the thumbs ups, the subscribes. I know there's some Leaf fans in there, Huss. I did have to address one question. Someone said, why are there so many Leaf fans? I'm like, well, they know where to go for good sports talk. That's the only reason.
Great answer, Reed.
Yeah.
That's a great answer.
They know where to go. So
they're probably a little more interested in the Winnipeg Jets right now and than they were last week. And again, we'll wait for the Leafs to finish the job. But certainly at this point, I think we're expecting a battle of Winnipeg and Toronto. And listen, I've seen some of the chats back and forth of the Jet fans and Leaf fans in here. And as I said, we love it all. Stay in here. Just be respectful. Let's have some fun. Mm-hmm. Don't be jerks. And, this is why we're here.
I would say for the most part today, is compared to yesterday, it's been Rain Man with the super chat. This is to
hey, what up, Rain Man? Thank you.
For
celebrate having Maurice on the show.
Yeah, for the most part, I think it's been pretty civil. I mean, you obviously can't do any like racist comments or derogatory terms, or I don't appreciate when you call other chatters names. But I mean, healthy debate about hockey among fan bases, I think is welcome. And yeah, as long as it's fine. I haven't had to do anything today, so it's been good. I mean, deleted a couple comments, but I appreciate everyone in chat who's keeping it real over there.
No, it's great, and I'll tell you what, I'd far rather have Jet fan and Leaf fan going back at each other, having some fun banter in the chat than anti-vax Al and COVID Karen going head-to-head with their hot takes on everything. So this has been a great, great day, and I imagine this is going to continue to be the way it is, certainly for the next few weeks, with interest and excitement building before round 2, certainly here in Winnipeg, and especially if it is the Jets going up against the Leafs Nation. We know there's lots of Leaf fans out there, so certainly everybody welcome to come in, hang out. But just as I said, house rules, be respectful, use your head, and we're here to have some fun, talk hockey, and enjoy each other's company, not troll people. So overall, going great so far today, and loving what we're hearing and seeing from the vast majority of everybody that has been with us. We've got a couple things to get to, Reem, before we finish up the program. And one of them is our cool bet lines as well as our picks for the track tonight at Assiniboia Downs. And again, I'm doubling up tonight. My bets were wiped out by weather. Remis went in race 1, did not get a W. So maybe I've got a chance to make a bit of a move here on Remo after his big opening day victory. But let's get to Cool Bet. We've got 3 Game 6s tonight in the Stanley Cup Playoffs. And just actually before we mention that, Remo, pop back in for a minute. This Carolina-Nashville series has turned out to be an absolute classic. We'll be talking about the 3 overtime games that led to a 4-0 sweep for Winnipeg over Edmonton. Nashville's gotten right back into this series in overtime, back-to-back double OT wins. And then last night, it was the Canes at home having to score in the third period, come back, and then have the captain, Jordan Staal, give them a huge win in the always important Game 5.
Yeah, I'm really pulling for Carolina. I don't want them to make me look bad. I picked them to win the Cup on my bracket. I just didn't want to pick Colorado, and I do like what they've done. I like Rod Brind'Amour, but I think this is a bit of a closer series than we thought. The other game went to overtime as well. Matt Duchene out of nowhere with the OT winner. So, yes, they'll be playing tomorrow night, Game 6, Carolina in Nashville. We'll see where that goes. I think a lot of pressure on Carolina. They've made a lot of moves. I know Dougie Hamilton's a free agent after this. Rod Brind'Amour as well, although I think it seems like he's probably coming back, although you do have Ron Francis in Seattle kind of looming overhead right now.
Until they have a coach or Brind'Amour has a contract, I am holding out on that, and that has got to be... Listen, I think Brind'Amour wants to go and win a cup and be able to say, all right, listen, my price is a lot more, because Tom Dundon has said in the past, not really interested in paying a premium or top dollar for coaching, management, and well, if I'm Rod Brindamore, I'm like, okay, that's your choice, and my choice would be to go somewhere else where they're going to pay me the way I should be being paid for being one of the top coaches in the National Hockey League. He'll probably win the Jack Adams, I would think, although there has been some really strong coaching jobs this year. But Rod the Bod, pretty much at the top of many people's list, and certainly one of the contenders. And I'm pumped, Reem, too. That win was huge for me in the hockey pool. I split my picks amongst 3 teams: Avalanche, Canes, and Jets. And I was able to get the Jets late, like Scheifele, Wheeler, Stastny, Pionk, all on the squad. So we could go 10 for 10, which is almost like, that's like in a DraftKings golf, having six of your six golfers make the cut. Very, very big going forward. So we'll do that. Now listen, Reem, you bring up HPI Bet. You take a look if you haven't got your picks ready. You do that while I get to coolbet.com and break down our lines for tonight in the National Hockey League. And how much is the Coliseum going to be rocking on Long Island? Already have incredible, incredible fans, and they have been boisterous, to say the least, since coming back to the barn and welcoming the Islanders back for the playoffs. Elimination game tonight for the Islanders, able to bounce the Pittsburgh Penguins for the second consecutive time when they've met. Of course, last year it was the Montreal Canadiens that did had the honor of bouncing Crosby and the Pens from the playoffs in the bubble. But the year before it was a shocking sweep for the Islanders. So Pittsburgh can push it to 7 and bring the series back home tonight with a win. Islanders can shut it down, and it's a pick'em. -106, Penguins -106, Islanders a straight up pick'em for game 1. That game is going to get going a little early, 5:30 Winnipeg time. Then at 7 o'clock, we get the Battle of Florida. Spencer Knight, the rookie, getting another start after Bob and Chris Drieger have already gotten their opportunity. Staved off elimination in game 4. Panthers now on the road looking to get it to 7. They are an underdog, +117. And the Tampa Bay Lightning, a favorite of -133. And then to finish it off, 8 o'clock start in Minnesota. It's the Vegas Golden Knights and the Minnesota Wild. Vegas a favorite to win the series, -120. Minnesota Wild +106. But Reem, the Wild, I think, are going to have a lot of momentum coming into this game, having, staved off elimination with a pretty gutsy performance in Game 5 when all of us were glued to Game 4 between Winnipeg and the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, we definitely have missed some of those other games while focusing on the Jets game. But I had said, Minnesota was one team that I thought could upset Vegas. I mean, they've played very well. They're just in a real tough division. If they had maybe a better draw where they don't have to go up against possibly the 2 best teams, maybe they could go a bit farther. But Minnesota's always been a team, that kind of gets in the playoffs out in the first round. They're definitely a different team, a younger team, more dynamic team than we've seen in the past. And they're definitely giving Vegas a run. So what is that? Is that one tonight here? Yes, you were just showing me the line. 8 o'clock p.m., home at the Excel Center. So that's a nice late one. I think I'll probably tune into that one tonight. The Florida, all these series have been low-key great. Islanders, Penguins, back and forth. I guess that's a nice 5:30 start too. Props to the NHL for staggering the times very nicely.
Yeah,
here
for
tonight.
Sure. Just quickly, NBA playoffs are going on. I know we haven't talked a lot of hoops with all the excitement around the hockey, but there are 3 games tonight. The Wizards are 8-point dogs at Philly. Hawks and Knicks go at it. Knicks -1.5 at home at the Garden. And the Memphis Grizzlies 10-point dogs at the Utah Jazz. Interesting to note, Reem, I was talking with Dustin on the Lock Shop about the NBA playoffs and gave out the Mavericks series over the Clippers. They were +320 to win the series. And Luka Doncic, pretty much single-handedly, 2 wins in LA, and the Mavs have a 2-0 lead coming back home. Can you imagine if the Clippers go out in the first round and this is the 2 years they get for all that they put in to get Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, all the picks and everything that they traded to make that happen, to be bounced in the first round by a 20-year-old European phenom?
I will say that Kawhi Leonard, and this is what I know from collecting NBA Top Shot, he and Paul George are hated. Nobody wants to own their cards. Kawhi Leonard has totally, ruined, his public, the public opinion. We know he's an all-time, great player. Won championships in Toronto and San Antonio. but no, he doesn't have a fan base behind him anymore. No one likes him. He's that guy, kind of made the whole hoopla to leave, go with the Clippers, and the Clippers are never going to be good. I think this kind of seals it. If you thought that before, it just confirms everything you thought about the Clippers. So, I guess that's one storyline to definitely be tuned into.
Well, I'll tell you what. This goes back to going to LA, but then I don't know if you saw. He signed with New Balance. He's like a New Balance guy.
Yeah.
And there's a massive billboard campaign with him in a New Balance T-shirt, and it just says, "This is his city." And you can imagine how Laker fans who are very passionate feel about that. The Clippers have always been sort of the little brothers, so. Anyways, pretty interesting on that. Has been some great nights. I think I'm going to check out this Knicks game. And again, listen, RJ Barrett, Canadian player on the Knicks. It's just cool to see the Knicks relevant again. Tom Thibodeau did such an amazing job coaching them this year. All right, let's get to our picks. HPIBet.com, folks, is where you want to be if you want to play with us. The duel at the Downs this season. Remis and myself, head-to-head with some daily picks. They're going back to post today at 7:20. If you do, listen, it's very simple. Go to hpibet.com, fill out, just sign up and make a deposit, and you can bet on Assiniboia Downs and watch the races as well. Now, last night, Remo went in on race number 1 and did not win. My races were, I kind of spread my bets out over 3, 4, and 5, and because of the crazy weather, it was kiboshed. So I have a double bet to make today. So I'm going to make 2. But Remo, have you checked out the races yet? Do you know where you're going?
No, I'm going in blind again. It worked for me the first time. If it doesn't work, I'll have to go with a new strategy. The first time we did this, I just kind of picked a horse and won. And I'm up a lot now because of that. I think my $20 bet paid 6-1. So you can do some quick math there.
You've got a nice lead right now over me.
I think that I'm going to go with this strategy. And then after that, if it doesn't work again, which odds are it will not, I will have to put in some time to determine. But we are on HPI bet here. I did pull up Assiniboia Downs as the track, and I can place my.
Are you going back? Are you Mr. Race 1? Is that your sweet spot? You're going.
Yeah, we ripping.
You can do whatever race you want. You can do any race. You can do any bet. I am splitting mine today because I've got the 2 to make between race number 4 and race number 6. In race number 6, the best bet is going to be Storm Squall. And Storm Squall is, talking to some people in the know, a dropping speed horse. So he's going to a level maybe sort of below where he normally has been. So 5-2 right now is the opening one, Shermanny Muir. So that's going to be my win pick today. And then I'm going to split. I'm going to do an exactor and a Quinella using 5-6. So Master Juba and McCaig in race number 4. I'll bang those down, probably split it evenly between Quinella and an exactor with the 5-6. And hopefully win them both and get back into striking distance of you after your big win on bet number 1, race number 1 of day number 1 of the live racing season. That's the way you start.
Yeah, I'll have to decide what I'm going to do. I'll place them in. Should I do it right now? I was going to place 2. You know what? Instead of betting 1 horse to win for $20, I could bet 2 horses to win for $10 each and have a better shot. I don't know why I didn't think about.
You could, or that. you could bet 1 to win and 1 to place.
Oh,
and
no.
Of course, to place, you get first or second. You could win them both.
Oh, so if I bet a horse to place, if they get first, I still win.
Yes, exactly. That's a good thing. And here's just a little 4-1-1 on this. If you bet to win, they've got to win. If you bet a horse to place, they can finish first or second. And if you bet, say you've got a long shot that you think might get in there, you can bet them to show where first, second, or third will also cash you the winning ticket.
Okay, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go show. I'm gonna put a bet to show $20. This horse, Otani.
Yes.
I don't know
what like
this is race 1. Yeah, race 1. Horse named Otani. He's paying 8-1. So I will put
be
$20 to show on Ohtani.
I want Ohtani.
There.
Damn, I wish I saw
Yeah.
it first. I want Ohtani.
No,
okay.
Ohtani is my horse. I'm taking Ohtani. You are not. And I don't want anyone to see my pin, so I'm getting away from the screen.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. But you can get in there. So Remis is on Ohtani in race number 1, and I've got those picks from race 4 and race number 6. Race 6, if we're just looking for the winner, our best bet, Storm Squall in race number 6. And again, all of that is at HPI Bet. We'll have some fun throwing in our picks every day. And yes, if you are planning on watching the races, betting on them tonight, make sure to tune in 6:45 on the Assiniboia Down site, ASD Live. They'll get the picks in, and you'll know what Marshall, Skip, Stretch, Kirk are all doing beforehand, and hopefully give you a little bit of good advice before making your own wagers.
One thing, I contemplated doing this during the Jets game, during those overtimes. It was like 1 a.m. I was like, whoa, I was on HPI Bet, admiring my win. And I was like, oh, I could bet on horse racing in Australia right now. I think, and it has the video. And I was like, oh, I haven't gone down that rabbit hole yet, but maybe a couple more wins and I'm feeling good and it's late and I need some action. I could see myself doing that.
I've already spent enough time betting on like the Nippon Ham Fighters and the Hiroshima Carp and in the Japanese Baseball League and KBO overnight. Not sure whether I need to start slamming down quinellas on the Australian racetracks, but it's all there for you if you want at HPI Bet. Parade to post tonight, 7:20, and first race going in about 20 minutes after that. And again, if you want, you can kind of time these things. They've got rough estimates on post time for all of the races when you're on hpibet.com as well. So great stuff to have that going on, and hopefully the weather will cooperate and they'll get the full slate in. Not very often you see the races canceled. I guess maybe a bit easier to do that without fans. Again, safety of the horses, jockeys, everyone is first and foremost, and that's why it didn't go last night.
Shout out to Tom Halleck. He says he bet on a Japanese race at 2 a.m. last Saturday, so sounds like a quality Saturday night to me.
I gotta give Tom a shout out because Tom, I don't know, I followed him and he responded to somebody that was in the horse industry, and I followed her yesterday, and they tweeted out the first race. Some good extra things to think. I'm trying to get in with some of the horsemen to get some good tips and understand this a little bit more to hopefully win a few more of these wagers as we go through.
I need to, when it comes to like football, I'm like, or fantasy, I'm always reading about picks, but I think I got to get into the horse racing. What's it called? Prognosticators more, or touts is the term I'm looking for.
Touts, yeah.
Are there any
Sharps,
good horse?
touts.
I gotta follow some sharps on Twitter. Couple horse racing touts, and then I'll be good to go. I can't go into this blind anymore, just picking horses named after my favorite baseball players. Although that's a good strategy, I think. I
often will walk in when there are fans going in. I'll be walking in with some buddies, and before I've even seen the card or anything, I'm like, I'm going on number 5 in the first race we can bet on, or usually it has something to do with some old Jet player's number. But it's essentially a random selection, and if you can hit that first dart, then you're really off to the races with a little bit of extra flow to play with the
I'm
other
already
races.
off to that, and I can't wait till it opens and we can go, and I can actually just go on the website on my phone and make the bet from my seat instead of having to go to the window and pretend like I know what I'm talking about. I think the first time we went, I went up to him, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing here. Just give me one of these. I think I just asked you.
Well, I will say that, once we're back and things are open and we can go there, we'll get in that terrace dining room. We'll probably have a night with Winnipeg Sports Talk like we did back with 1290, where we'll invite a whole whackload of people, have a bite to eat. We'll do a little 411 operation where, people that are beginners can understand how the betting, how to read the form, and have a blast and get people together. That's honestly, that is something. It's so weird, the era we're living in right now, especially here in Manitoba, with all the changes that have happened personally, for us over the last few months. The fact that we've been doing this, I've still probably only seen you in person a couple times since Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily started, which is insane. But there will come a time where we're going to get back out there. And when we do, We'll be having meetups at Boston Pizza Lounge for a game at some point. We'll watch a Bomber game. We'll definitely get the gang together out at the track. There'll be plenty of things that we're doing, so I cannot wait for that. We just need to be a little bit more patient, and thank God the Winnipeg Jets and the run that they're on is going to keep us occupied for a few more weeks at least, beginning next week against the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, all things considered, it would just be nice if it was a bit warmer right now. Man, this frost warning. My friends in the gardening game were all freaking out last night that there was a frost warning. I think we've got it again tonight, although it does seem to be warming up going through until the next week or so. And then I think I saw like next Monday, potentially getting up to 30 or so 28 Monday and Tuesday next week, 21, 23 for the weekend. Even Friday is going to be 22 and sunny. We can handle that. But a high of 11, not so good today. 15 tomorrow. But at least we'll have some sunshine. And heck, by the time next week goes, maybe even by the time the weekend goes, we could be not caring about the weather at all because everyone's focus will be entirely on game one between the Jets and their second round opponents.
Yeah, here we're now the Weather Channel. I got it up here. Skywatch weather. Yeah, what is it now? 7 degrees right now. Afternoon 9 tonight. -3. That's crazy. -3 in May 26th.
You know what this just reminded me of, Reem? Our Winnipeg Sports Talk segment that will be coming in the future as we get closer to Bomber season. Weather with Willie Jefferson.
Weather. He said he wanted to be a weather guy.
He wants to be the weather guy. So I think we're going to have to lean on Willie and have him come on. He can drop some weekend forecasts. He can put, Colleen Brady, Terry Apostle, John Sauter all on notice. That Willie's maybe thinking about getting into the weather game. And I guarantee you it'll be the most entertaining weather report that we'll see in southern Manitoba whenever he does it.
We can make it happen. Let's make sure Willie's not in his car next time he's on the show. Because although that was one of the more memorable segments when he was in his car.
And it gave us the best gifts, too. Remember, he did thing with the jersey afterwards and then doing the double W. I've seen some people screen grab those and pop it out. Don't worry, we won't be charging any DCMA violations. We love when you gift the stuff up from the show and get it going.
He says, Chris Vermette says, it's raining, but come on down to Winnipeg. That's pretty good. Shout out to Dan Milburn. He says, now I see why I wear a hat. So, and then Benji Rothman, who won the cake, he said that I wasn't wearing a hat because, we had royalty, the coach coming on. I did
best
shower.
Behavior today.
I was on my best behavior. I showered and shaved just to make it look like we're a professional operation.
Does this count as wearing a collar today?
What is that? What is that? Zip up? 3/4 zip?
It's a QZ right there.
Oh yeah, what brand is that? Are you allowed to say?
Adidas.
Oh, that's not hashtag sponsored. That's just what you bought.
No.
Although Tim, I got a text. Tim was wearing a really nice Adidas NHL zip up, and as an owner of a couple Adidas zip ups, they are very comfortable.
Well, and hey, he's NHL.com. They should be, the NHL.com guys should be getting hooked up with some nice. NHL. Who's the current NHL? Is it still Adidas right now?
No,
or I have a hard time.
Adidas does the pro jerseys. Fanatics does the a lot of the other apparel now. Fanatics has kind of taken over. Yeah, they've taken over a lot of the sports apparel world. Oh, Mike K says you need a collar like Dr. Rusin. Maybe.
Dude, those Rusin memes.
I've seen a lot
that
of
have
those.
Come out of that one, like the announcement last week with like the collar that was out. Whoever put the tie wrapped around his head with the 2 Bud Lights.
That was the best one.
It was me at a social. The next time we get out was great. But even better was the one where they added like 8 more Bud Lights in there, whatever the beers were, and said, me after double overtime or whatever it was. So anyway,
I never saw that one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's been an addition to it. The only thing, it would be better if we had like some 1919s in there as opposed to Bud Lights. But hey, we didn't make the memes. We just read them. I do want to give a special thanks out though to Little Brown Jug. We talked about them a little earlier, but we're gonna send over some victory beers for the coach and maybe some of the guys that have joined us on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. And as I said, there it is. That's the growler, right, Reem? See, I'm down, I guess, with the growlers, but when you've got cans like this, and I found out today talking to him, they gave out, we had those koozies, the 16-ounce koozies for the 1919. Well, and I was saying, listen, that's such a veteran move to get the 16-ounce koozie for the 16-ounce can. I did find out, though, you can actually roll it down, and there's something on the inside of it if you need to use it for a 12-ounce can. But needless to say, the 1919 koozie goes best with a Little Brown Jug 1919. I'm sure the coach will enjoy it, as will some of our guests on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. What are you watching tonight?
Oh man, what are we watching? I'm probably doing some work for this show. I know I'm going to post the Paul Maurice interview as a separate one for anyone who missed it. I'm going to be doing that. I will be having on in the background. I'll have a tablet beside me with the Panthers Lightning game, and then I'll switch to the late game once all the other games are done. But yeah, I'm going to be working. I got some stuff I got to do. A lot of people asking about merch. I'm going to start getting the wheels rolling on a Winnipeg Sports Talk store for a website. So it doesn't stop here once the show's over. You think I'm just sitting at home doing nothing?
Yeah, certainly not parenting, everybody.
I'm parenting. I do. I have a window. I do my parenting. What was like between 4:30 and 7. I get my parenting done, and then after 7, he's asleep. Oh yeah. Also, I was going to be working on the Instagram contest we have tonight. So follow Winnipeg Sports Talk on Instagram. The link is in the description of this video, and we'll have a contest. And then if you enter, we'll throw everyone in a draw. And I believe Little Brown Jug has given us a prize we'll be giving away. So that'll be fun. So follow us on Instagram. We just hit 1,200 followers. And we had some great posts of, press conferences from the Jets, highlights from the show.
Yeah, Remo's been kicking ass on the ground, folks, and all the social media stuff. I will say that. And as well, and I don't know whether you were going to tell me about this or surprise this, but I've already seen some props in the chat as well. We've got some good transitions going on. I mean, the coach coming in, going from our screen to back at the Little Brown Jug thing up going. I mean, I've just been I've been amazed here, Reem. How did you pull this off? You get more professional every day.
Shout out to my buddy Tyler at Design Harbour. He's helped me out with some graphics. We got got you in there. We got the animated background. So if you're listening on the podcast. We've kind of upped our YouTube game today. I'm learning more about, the software we're using. I know they have an updated version. I'll be able to do way more fun stuff. So, sorry, I'm not on the screen. 1 sec. I'll just slide right in.
Oh, wow. Just slide right in there. Very professional. By the way, speaking of merch, we're working on this stuff. We'll have something to tell you shortly. But Jeff Kabilis, WST swag, what's the status on the gas mask bong? LOL. No, we will not be having the Laramie Tunsil signature WST model, I don't think. If you want to make one yourself, feel free. That'll be a one of one, but I don't really think that'll be a product we'll be bringing to Remis's Winnipeg Sports Talk store. Probably more things like maybe hats, hoodies, mugs, a few of those things to do it. But in the meantime, as I said, tonight, great time for a 1919. And speaking of those Little Brown Jugs, so Friday we're going to be doing we'll execute the Instagram portion of the contest, but we do have 2 Little Brown Jug online gift certificates. Will you just be able to go utilize the great new website and do it? So
I save it for tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow after another very special guest. We'll have a packed chat. We'll pick some names, and we'll do it like that for people that are with us. But if you want to get in for a marble race to finish up Friday's show, stay tuned and go to Instagram. Check out the piece. You'll see a post on Sports Talk Winnipeg with a 1919, some Jet stuff in there. That's the one you're going to do. Read it, tag a friend. Make sure you're following us, and maybe we'll have a gift cert for you for the Little Brown Jug online store coming up on Friday. So you'll have a couple days to do the Instagram. Tomorrow we'll do it with people in the chat. Be a lot of fun to do it, and thanks again to Dustin and the gang at Little Brown Jug for their incredible support, as well as sending over a few congratulatory cold ones for Coach Paul Maurice.
Yeah, I was like, hey, do I need to deliver them myself? I can go do that. I'm happy to do that. And you're like, oh, no, they have their own delivery.
Home delivery. Wake up.
I was like, right. Oh, yeah, they do that. So I actually might have to order some stuff here.
Well, not a bad idea. And heck, as we said, with right now, if you are going to the bottle shop with any of the can it ins, make sure to pick up the 1919 so you can win that 1919 beer fridge. But as far as right now, I mean, no one really, I think, wants to go out much. We're being told not to, so you can avoid it by simply going to the brand new relaunched website, ordering online, and they will show up at your house, give it to you, and you'll be set. You'll be good to go with the best beer that our city's producing right now, Little Brown Jug. Man, this has been an awesome show. Hey, I do, Remo, want to give a shout out to our friends at Aikens Lake. I meant to do this a little bit before. I've seen Pitt. I know huge Jet fans there. Can't imagine how much fun they're having up at the lodge, watching the games in the evening and being out on the water during the day. If you are thinking about some sort of a vacation in Manitoba this year, check out our friends at Aikens Lake, world-class lodge with some of the most incredible people that you could possibly meet. The staff is amazing. And even for someone like me that had never really spent, any time on the water before, I was a master angler in about 36 hours after being at Aikens Lake. I still hold that one over Gary. Love it. But it was just an experience like I've never had before. And often the month of June usually the month of June, packed top to bottom with people coming up from the States. Obviously, that's not happening. So there is some, unique availability in June. That is never the case. And again, you just drive to Silver Falls, short flight. You'll be on the water in a couple hours from the city. So find out more online, aikenslake.com. Or give Pitt Turen, our good friend, a buzz on Twitter at aikenslake.com. I have, just before we go, Reem, this is going to be a great night of hockey. I mean, 3 Game 6s, 5:30 Pittsburgh Islanders, Florida, Tampa at 7, and Vegas, Minnesota. I mean, I could give you a reason why any one of these 6 teams will win tonight. Do you have any lean? And by the way, in the chat right now, who's your best bet tonight? Just one of those teams to win the game. Would love to see what the chat has to say before I make my final picks for coolbet.com. Ooh. Remo, if you had to put a fin down on a team to win, pretend this was a survivor pool tonight, who are you taking?
I think I would go, if you had to pick one team, I know Spencer Knight is the hot thing in Florida. I would probably take Tampa. I know they're the biggest favorite, but they're also the defending Cup champions. So I would pick Tampa to win. And if you want to pick another one, the only team that's home with the 3-2 lead. Sorry, Tampa's also home. The Islanders are home with the 3-2 lead as well. I'll go Tampa. I'm going to pick Tampa, but if I had to pick one team to extend, I will take Minnesota. They're at home. And they're the one home team that's down 3-2. So
it almost seems like that series should be 7. Although I think I'm with Miller Time 1980 with Vegas. I think they get it done tonight after missing their first chance to do it at home. And Penguins, I'd love to see the Penguins and Panthers do it just because we want Game 7. So to be honest with you, what's the Game 7 parlay?
To get all the Game 7s? Oh,
Minnesota.
You know what? I would bet. I don't think that's going to win, but I could bet on that. Here,
well, let's see it right now. So if we took the Penguins, Panthers, and Wild would be a plus 769 parlay, and that would make a lot of people happy as well. As I said, you can make your own selections. Coolbet.com. I will put out the lines on our Twitter at Sports Talk WPG, and if you do want to bet on the games, click the link and use the promo code WST. It's all there in the Twitter. It's all there in the tweet. Very simple. And big thanks to Chris and the gang at coolbet.com for being with us on board since the start. Remo, what a great show we've had today. Cannot thank Scott and the guys at the Jets enough for scheduling and allowing and making happen Coach Paul Maurice to come on for the first time today. And with a little bit of downtime, we'll make an announcement tomorrow morning, but can tell you another very special guest from the organization planning to come on tomorrow. It should be fun. And I guess tomorrow's Thursday. We'll have to see. That should be our regular visit discussing the series with, is it Kenny or Rennie? I think it's Rennie tomorrow.
Oh, it is Rennie? Okay.
And
I think it is Rennie.
Make sure. Maybe
last week was Kenny. Remember, because his power went out, and he had to do it off his phone, and then it froze because someone called him. Yes,
that's right.
And
learning so many things about streaming, broadcasting, YouTube.
Just we do have to give a shout out. I saw someone mention this in chat. We didn't acknowledge it. We haven't touched too much on the Blue Jays because we've been going really hard on the hockey. We know Guerrero is the best hitter in baseball, but a Blue Jays prospect, Alek Manoah, is making his debut tonight in Yankee Stadium. So if you're following the Blue Jays, I think I see a lot of fans on Twitter. They're pitching. I think they've had a number of injuries this year. The Blue Jays, again, it's tough with the Jets playing so well and following that, but we will get to some Blue Jays, I think, in the summer and definitely in the playoffs too, because I know a lot of people are fired up about that.
Well, it
was Dominic. Shout out to Dominic for bringing that one up.
Yeah, well, that's probably Dom. Yeah, well, Dom, listen, I know there's a lot. That could be the Dominator. I'm not really, he's a huge Jays fan. But listen, they won. I mean, I don't know how much you wanted us to talk about the Jays last week when they're losing 6 or 7 in a row. It probably would have been move on. This is depressing. So, but listen, does Vlad have 16 now? One ahead of Ohtani? I mean, you want to talk about, this could be the home run race for the ages with 2 of the most exciting young players in baseball. One a pitcher, one on the Blue Jays going head to head. But both of those guys must see whenever they're up at the plate.
Yeah, we did see. I saw Jay WPG in chat was asking about advertising. There is go to our website, winnipegsportstalk.com. You can contact us there. The question: how many people run Winnipeg Sports Talk? 2. Just looking at both of them. Somehow only 2. So I don't know. We're here doing it. I don't have the. I'm getting a long iPhone cable so I can have the the Remis bubble cam of the command center on. I can bring it up anytime because right now it's not set up, but I'll have that camera set just so we can go anytime.
Well, as I said, who knows how we'll look listen, it's working out great right now for us, both from our own spot. Certainly down the road, would love for us to be able to be in the same place in somewhat of a studio, bringing people in live. But for right now, these are the conversations that need to be had. There's a lot of excited Jets fans and Winnipeg sports fans, Manitoba sports fans with us, and even getting in some of the Leafs Nation as things start to percolate before a potential second-round matchup. But listen, Leafs fans, before you start beaking us, take care of your business, and then we'll figure things out when round number 2 is set.
Yeah, and you ask Leaf fans, as I said earlier, not feeling that confident, but they are up 3-1. They have looked like the better team. I think Carey Price is going to have to steal one, and Montreal is going to have to figure out how to score some goals if they want to move on. 4-zip last night.
Good stuff. All right, well, listen. This has been an awesome show. Thanks again to Paul Maurice for joining us. As always, we want to thank Not Auto Corp, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Little Brown Jug Brewing, Assiniboia Downs, Breezy Bend Country Club, Cool Bet, and Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. Been a great show. Podcast will be up shortly if you've just popped in. We'll also post the Paul Maurice interview separately on YouTube. You want to let people know, tweet out a link for that. We'd certainly appreciate it. And most of all, make a plan to be with us tomorrow. Another great guest from the Jets. We'll announce it tomorrow morning. You're not going to want to miss it, though. We'll have Sean Reynolds, I believe, join us, break down his thoughts on what we saw in this series against Edmonton and a look ahead to what's next, as well as everything coming out of 3 big Game 5s tonight in the Stanley Cup playoffs. For Michael Remis, I'm Andrew Paterson. Shout out to all the Jets fans and even the Leaf fans that came in today. A great turnout, and for the most part, civil and fun in the chat, and that is the way we like it. Folks, have a great night tonight. Continue exhaling and getting some rest from that series. It's going to get ramped up again very, very soon, and we'll see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock right here, live on YouTube on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.